Happy Children's Day here in Korea. Thanks for tuning into Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. We have plenty lined up for you today, so let's get started with a glimpse of the day's highlights. Korean automakers are stepping up efforts to get ahead in the game of making next-generation vehicles, especially those with extra connectivity on the road. The U.S. puts Korea along with 4 other countries on its monitoring list for currency manipulation. How will this latest move affect Korea's foreign exchange market and its struggling exporting sector? We'll sit down with an expert to find out more. But first, Korea's TV drama Descendants of the Sun is reigniting a Korean pop culture boom. Now, the series has garnered so much popularity that a lot of eyes are now on the hidden economic gains. Our Lee Ju-young reports.
The sweeping popularity of Korea's military romance TV series Descendants of the Sun is not just captivating K-drama lovers, but economists as well. The charm for them lies in the massive economic effects that could spill out from the 16-episode show. According to Korea Exim Bank, the direct and indirect economic impact of the $11 million production is estimated to be over 1 trillion won, or roughly $870 million US dollars. The TV series is said to have generated over $30 million in direct exports after signing with 32 countries around the world, including China, Japan, and Germany. But in terms of indirect export, the value created is even more substantial, with the total tallying up to roughly $942 million. The bank also projects the TV drama to help create over 4,500 jobs while attracting up to 100,000 foreign tourists. The war drama has chiefly become a monster hit in China after logging more than 2.4 billion views on a Chinese video streaming website since it began airing in late February. It has also reportedly generated $95 million worth in advertising for Hyundai Motor, which won over product exposure in return for a handsome investment. And experts say other small and mid-sized firms that are looking to expand overseas will also benefit down the line.
SMEs lack in marketing skills, capital, and talent, and they don't have strong brands. So when Hallyu improves the country's image as a whole, smaller firms are able to benefit just from their products being made in Korea and attract more interest and sales from other countries.
With the country's cultural content industry considered to be one of the fastest growing sectors, experts say the government needs to foster more professionals in the field, and that private firms should come up with long-term strategies and promote cultural exchanges with potential markets. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
The connected car market is heating up as auto companies partner with tech heavyweights to create the next generation ride. And amid the competition, our Eunice Kim tells us why a recent partnership between Hyundai Motor and U.S. company Cisco is turning heads.
A car that lets you text your friends and connect with your mobile phone at home. It automatically gauges road conditions and alerts the driver while keeping a safe distance from the vehicle ahead. It's the connected car of the future, as envisioned by Hyundai Motor, which took the step of partnering with U.S. networking company Cisco Systems to develop its in-vehicle network technology that's to enable and control super-fast data transmission. Automakers collaborating with tech companies is becoming more commonplace. BMW has teamed up with Samsung Electronics to connect its i3 to the home and will use Samsung SDI's battery in its 2017 model. Volkswagen is working with LG Electronics, Toyota with Microsoft, and Ford with Amazon. But Hyundai's partnership with Cisco stands out in that they are building a network and security system from the ground up that goes beyond the current focus on software and infotainment systems.
We're not stopping at fusing the car with information technology. We want to make the car a super-fast computer on the road.
Hyundai's sister company Kia Motors is also making significant investments in next-generation vehicles, developing its own driverless car technology through its DriveWise subsidiary brand. It aims to put a completely autonomous car on the road by 2030.
The biggest plus at Kia is realizing an autonomous car with an EV as its base.
With tech giants Apple and Google deep into R&D to build their own futuristic vehicles, an internet cloud computing connected car may not be so sci-fi after all. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
For the first time here in Korea, researchers have found the country's very own natural yeast for making bread. It took them 11 years, and this discovery is already making its way into overseas markets. Our Park Se-young tells us more.
These loaves of bread being baked in this giant oven don't look much different from other breads sold at local bakeries in Korea. But what's special about them is that they're made using Korea's homegrown natural yeast.
I was in doubt about this bread baked with homegrown natural yeast, but now that I've tried it, I can say the texture is much better than I expected.
For the past 11 years, Korea's bakery giant SPC Group and Seoul National University have been conducting studies on indigenous yeast for bread making. In the process, researchers went to Mount Jirisan in Gyeongsangnam-do Province and Seoraksan Mountain in Gangwon-do Province to gather samples of local microorganisms. They also went to markets across the country to get nuruk, a leavening agent used to make liquor, and that's where they found the right microorganism to make bread. Thanks to such efforts, Korea has now succeeded in baking bread using homegrown yeast instead of commercial yeast from other countries.
Nuruk is a traditional food source of Korea. The fact that we discovered natural yeast from nuruk is a major achievement in the fermented food industry.
SPC Group will use the natural yeast in 27 bread products and plans to make changes to production lines and processing to mass-produce breads made with the new organism. It has also completed patent registration for its yeast in Korea and has filed patent applications in the US, France, Japan, and China. Park Se-young, Business Daily.
Korea might have been able to dodge being labeled a currency manipulator, but it's not completely off the hook yet because it's now been put on Washington's monitoring list. How will this affect Korea's foreign exchange market, especially at a time when the country is already struggling with falling exports? Take a look.
Growing currency manipulation concerns in the U.S. have led Washington to put Korea, along with Japan, China, Taiwan, and Germany, on a new currency watch list. In its semi-annual report, the U.S. Treasury Department said it will keep a close eye on the 5 countries' foreign exchange practices to see whether they provide unfair trade advantages over Washington. As for Korea, the report said Seoul's financial authorities intervened to resist depreciation of the Korean won in the second half of last year through March of this year. The Treasury Department also called on Korea to limit its interventions only to circumstances of disorderly market conditions and to make its foreign exchange operations more transparent. Korea's inclusion on the monitoring list is driving up concerns that it will further challenge conditions at home as it may strengthen the won and make its faltering exports more costly.
And to tell us more about this, we have Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha Women's University joining us in the studio today. So good to see you, Professor.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, so when we say currency manipulation, what exactly are we talking about and how is it done?
Well, broadly speaking, it is a financial policy that increases export of the nation without improving competitiveness of their products. So it might be the easiest way to improve their export of the nation.
Now, at this point, what's the difference between currency manipulation then, between currency manipulation and negative rate policies, as well as quantitative easing, which in theory are supposed to devalue local currencies?
Well, between quantitative easing and currency manipulation, the policy target is different. The quantitative easing and negative interest rates are for improving domestic consumption and investment. However, the currency manipulation is for making their products cheaper, so that affects different countries' export.
Then, when was the last time that the U.S. has actually designated a country as a currency manipulator?
Well, actually, over the last 30 years, U.S. and China had such a hard time about the issues of undervalued Chinese yuan. So sometimes they really conflicted over the issue. So in 1989, U.S. government designated China as a currency manipulator. So that was the only example.
Now, talking about penalizing countries that try to gain benefits by manipulating foreign exchange rates, tell us a little bit about this Bennett-Hatch-Carper Amendment, which was signed into law back in February.
Well, Bennett-Hatch-Carper Amendment is a part of the Act in 2015, which is enforcement of the U.S. trade and export and import together. So that enforces U.S. Department of Treasury to react more quickly to currency manipulating countries by providing exact definition of the currency manipulation. Also, it requires U.S. government to take action, quick action on currency manipulators through punishment and bilateral talk.
Then can you give us more details on the criteria that the U.S. said it will use to assess whether a country has manipulated its currency?
Well, as I said, Bennett-Hatch-Carper Amendment provides a very exact definition of the criteria for currency manipulation. The first is the trade surplus against the United States should be exceeding $20 billion.
Okay.
Secondly, the current account surplus of the country is exceeding 3% of the nation's GDP. And the last is net purchase of the government, the currency manipulating government. Foreign exchange should be exceeding 2% of the nation's GDP.
All right, and Korea met two of those three criteria, right?
Exactly.
And now Seoul has been rejecting accusations that it has manipulated currency. And what do you think is the biggest evidence that Korea can use to make its case?
Well, as you said, South Korea met two criteria of the currency manipulations given by U.S. Congress. South Korea's trade surplus against the United States exceed $28 billion. And secondly, South Korea's foreign reserve foreign currency trading, however, was only 0.2% of the GDP. So that's why we were not part of the currency manipulating country.
Then what would be another thing that Korea can use to make its case, though, saying that it did not manipulate with its currency, because it still remains on a monitoring list?
Right. So South Korea has been very cautious about intervening the foreign currency market in Seoul, because U.S. Department of Treasury was watching Korea and many other countries very closely. So the reason why Korea was not chosen as a currency manipulating country this time was Korean government very careful policy for the last 2 years.
All right, then what happens when a country is put on a monitoring list for currency manipulation, like Korea, along with 4 other countries?
Well, it doesn't look that there's further significant punishment from United States for these countries, China, Korea, Japan, Germany, etc. However, they will be watching these countries very closely. So Korean government has to be very careful in intervening the Korean exchange markets.
Then what kind of impact could all this have, being put on a watch list, have on Korea's foreign exchange market?
Well, since Korean government is less inclined to intervene the Korean foreign exchange market, the market fundamentals will be more affecting the price of the Korean money, which is Korean won and US dollars in Seoul.
Then how would that affect Korea's already struggling exporting sector then?
Right, that might be affecting Korean export because the Korean exporting companies cannot seek their Korean government intervention in Korean foreign exchange market. So it is time for Korean exporting company to improve their international competitiveness.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today, Professor.
Thank you very much.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Have a great Children's Day for those of you here in Korea, and for those of you around the world, see you soon.